Chris, I thought, oh, nice standard tag match. The obvious person loses. It's fine. It's a weekly TV show. It doesn't have to be blockbuster every time. Cody and Jey peacefully coexist. It's up in the air who Jay's going to choose. We'll talk about all that. Cody celebrating. It's kind of a feel-good way to end a Friday.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tama Tonga's going to lose. Fatu looks strong, kicked out at 1 from a Cody cutter, all that stuff. And then Paul Levesque didn't do the credits, I don't think. I don't think we had the credits on the screen. But Solo Sikoa, or a hooded individual comes in with a solo spike. And I'm like, oh, who could that be? And he dehoods, pulls his hood down, and it's Solo Sikoa. So he's back after a few weeks away. An angle at the end. Don't know what to make of it. I've been kind of wondering, how Solo would fit into WrestleMania season. So just first, we'll start with your thoughts on Solo. We'll kind of work backwards from there and the Cody Jey stuff.
I think it's good they brought him back. Not that I missed him necessarily, but it felt like they had done so much to build him up that his absence did feel like he left a void, or specifically the character left a void. So I was glad to see him back. I will be interested to see how he stacks up against a sort of creatively unleashed Jacob Fatu, particularly on the mic, which is where we know Solo does not excel in the way Fatu does, but he's gotten better. So, we'll see if the adage is true, right? The rising tide lifts all ships, right? So we'll see. But I had a blast tonight, and I've been critical of the last couple episodes, so I had a great time tonight. Yeah,
and I think you're right. Fatu has momentum, and Solo kind of didn't. Solo kind of got beat.
Yeah.
I don't know if defined down is a word, but I guess defined to the level that I think most people saw him at. Not a future top centerpiece act, but suitable in the role. He's like, between a 4 and a 6.5 most weeks in terms of his performance in the ring and on the microphone.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was never like, oh, this guy's terrible. Like, he didn't have go away heat. Just like, sometimes a little below what you hope, sometimes a little above, and, worth having around. So I wasn't sure what they're going to do with him, but Fatu is obviously the standout talent. So the dynamic with Fatu and Solo, especially going forward, it's going to be interesting. I don't know if they'll, if they want to play that up as anything other than they each are very different people. They're both formidable, and they each kind of do their own thing, and it might not really be anything beyond that.
Right. Yeah. But it doesn't feel like they can do that. There's got to be some sort of collision.
It is pro wrestling.
Yeah.
So, let's, we don't really know what to do with that. We'll see. But it's something going into Elimination Chamber or whatever. So we have Jey making his tour this week from Raw to SmackDown. Charlotte making her tour from Raw to NXT to SmackDown. We'll get into Charlotte. Some interesting stuff going on there on the women's side of things. But with Jey Uso, it just he got the 10-minute ring entrance again, just like on Raw.
Right.
It's fun. They're on such different platforms now between Netflix and USA.
Yep.
When someone like Jey wins and you really want to emphasize it's a big deal and the crowd's going to create a magical moment, which I argue we're seeing right now with Jey, then, go, if you can get it twice in a week, why not? But then we got to business. And Cody said, I know what Memphis and Jey want to talk about. Do you want to face me? And, they laid it out straightforward. It was really straightforward.
Yeah.
I've got a personal issue with Gunther. Cody, you're a big star. I might prove myself against you. What stood out in the exchange between Jey and Cody? Did you expect anything different? Did you like it? Talk about that.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked the directness. I did like the play on, I suspect we know what you want to talk about. I think the idea of the main event going up against the American Nightmare would be a big match in its own. I like the idea of Cody saying, if you come after me, right? If this is the choice you make against me, I'm going to treat you like anybody else, right?
We'll be friends tonight. Let's have fun. But then it's getting serious. Yep, I love that.
Then it's game on. And I thought that intensity played really well and really authentically.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So
it was fair. It was a sports-like feel. Like, two people might be friends on opposite teams, but when it's, Kevin Durant and Anthony Edwards are like good friends. Anthony Edwards always chose Kevin Durant when he played NBA video games. He respects the hell out of him, but when they played in the playoffs, they went at each other. And that's a sports vibe. I like that.
And specifically, I like that Cody said he wasn't just going to, to beat him down in the main event of WrestleMania. Oh no, the lead up, man, it's going to be a tough, next 71 days, right? So I appreciated that almost ferocity that was underneath. So I dug it.
I like the acknowledgement of history. Not that it's all that remarkable anymore, but talking about Cody and Jey in their past and just saying, hey, they've tagged together, they've won belts together, and now they might go to battle at WrestleMania. Lazan White says, I think Jey versus Cody is a better story than Jey versus Gunther. It is, except nothing happens in a vacuum. That's what I said the night of the Royal Rumble when the debate was, should Jey have won or should he not have won? And Rich Fan and Todd Martin are going back and forth on the VIP roundtable on that. And I was like, let's step back and realize this isn't just we're going with Jey because we think it's the best choice. If we go with Jey, that frees up somebody else who would have won to do something different. We need to see what that is. So I apply the same standard here. If Jey faces Cody, then that means every other Cody match people are looking at, John Cena, who, the whole list goes away. And then who does Gunther face? I'd love to see CM Punk against him, for instance. I think that'd be a good match. Cena against Gunther would help elevate Gunther. Those are the marquee names that would help elevate Gunther's legacy. What he say Monday? What was the term? I don't know, improve his brand or, build on his legacy is something closer to what he said. And so, it's not, I'm not super against that if that happens, but I don't think it's going to. I think it is going to be Jey Gunther, and I think Cody will face someone else. But you know what? I entertained on this very show Jey Uso winning the Rumble, and I go, we're doing this because it's a fun conversation, not because we think it's going to happen. Right. So
and there
we're all humbled. There's certain things we can roll out. Akira Tozawa, had he not been attacked by Carmelo Hayes, would not have won the Royal Rumble and be going out of WrestleMania and touring Raw and SmackDown this week. There are certain things we really know. But, Chris, Cody against Jey feels as unlikely as I was trying to think more or less than Jey winning the Rumble. So, but it happening twice, probably not, but it's I'm not ruling it out. It's a single digit percentage for me at this point based on the lay of the land, but it's not less than 5%. I think it could happen.
Yeah. The story I played out in my mind tonight as they were having a face-off was an ultimate sort of double turn, right? Mm-hmm. Bringing it back to his family, Jey, by finding some way to screw Cody out of it to win. But they wouldn't do that, right? They're going to ride this wave of extraordinary popularity, and so I just can't see them having Jey and Cody and having Jey go over cleanly in any conceivable way against Cody. That's right.
That's the thing. And I think some people are thinking now, Chris, Jay's going to win the title and they're going to have him, defend it post WrestleMania season.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're going to end Cody's reign with Jey. Nah. So, I'm just sitting here. Yeah. I'm saying this in the context of Jey won the Rumble and, people, in our PWTorch.com poll, 9% predicted it would happen or something like that. It was like in fifth place or something. It wasn't like nobody thought so, but realistically speaking, highly unlikely. And there's all kinds of scenarios we can conjure up and book that obviously would be shocking and draw ratings and draw money. But WWE is never in a rush to do those. They do those at the right time. And what you want to do is, for lack of a better term, milk Cody's babyface run as long as you can. Have in the back of your mind in a year or 2 or 3 when might turn him. Maybe he's managed by Paul Heyman, maybe not. And you can make a lot of money, but make money with Cody's babyface run as long as you can. Absolutely. Unless it's a who did Tom Brady replace on the New England Patriots? I'm drawing a blank on is it, but it's nevertheless sometimes a young quarterback comes along and pushes out a good starter. The chat room will help me on this. Knocks out a good starter because they're better and they have a long way to go. And, that person could show up. Maybe it's Ron Breaker. Drew Bledsoe. Thank you, chat room. Drew Bledsoe was a quarterback that Brady replaced, and Drew was a good quarterback. And it's like, wait, they're ousting him, and then he was off to another team and played free murder. So that can happen, but I don't see that right now. That's not the reason. So that's the thing. But here's the thing. You play it out on television because not everybody's talking like we are. Damian Priest, I'm going to go on to WrestleMania and I'm going to win the chamber. I'm going to be, no, you're not. But,
right.
you still tell that story on TV because the
Yeah.
believable story is if this were real, everybody who was a former world champion or at that level would be saying, I have a chance to win. That's the right thing to do. And it's fun to watch.
And I even, on that note, Priest's promo tonight felt really good. And it's like, even as we're talking, you're saying, we know it's not going to be him. There was something about his delivery. Everybody felt like they had a chip on their shoulder tonight, right? Like they were trying to prove themselves. And I can imagine somebody like Priest knowing, I'm not going to be in the main spot, but man, I'm going to fight this whole season so that they think about next year giving me that spot, which means we're just going to get really good TV, really good promos, better matches, right? And I think we felt that turn, at least I felt that turn personally tonight, because you're right. The way they're talking, man, they got to talk that game.
Yep. All right, let's pause. Let's introduce the show. And then I want to read some chat room comments, as I usually do after Block A here on the main topic. People responding to what we're saying. And we'll read that and put it on the screen for YouTube and read it for our audio listeners. And then we'll obviously get on other topics. We had Charlotte. We had some tag team stuff. We'll talk about some of the roster cutbacks that are going on. Kind of some surprising names like Sonya Deville's contract's expiring, won't be renewed. AOP let go. Cedric Alexander out. I'm very, very confident Cedric's going to end up in AEW and Hurt Syndicate or in a storyline with them. Blair Davenport also released. Paul Ellering, no shock, let go. Curious if AOP are brought in to AEW. Tony Khan just brings almost everybody in, with or without due diligence or without just like, oh, they're free. But anyway, so threw those names out there. I don't know if there's more because we're covering SmackDown Live here. If the chat sees anything, I'll keep an eye on you. You can break the news to me. Not huge news, but yeah, I mean, anytime a wrestler's cut like Sonya, who's been around that long, or just her contract's running out, it's like, what's up with that? So, all right.
And Cedric just re-signed.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It is.
Yep. Okay. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Friday, February 7th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website, PWTorch.com. We'll have a news story up later tonight on the cutbacks, and we've got our flashbacks on SmackDown. I think today we ran our 5 years ago flashbacks on SmackDown, but we've got 10 and 20 years ago flashbacks on all the shows that have been around that long, 30 years ago flashbacks on Raw. So it's kind of fun when you're, settling in to watch Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever show, NXT Impact 2, to see what's going on 5, 10, and sometimes 20 and 30 years ago. We also have columns and live TV and pay-per-view coverage and polls and much more. A lot of good stuff. Once you get done with the SEO headlines and the clickbait and breaking news you might, get drawn to elsewhere, be sure to make sure that PWTorch.com is part of your list because you can settle in and read some, I think, a lot of sites have moved away from editorials and commentary, and that's always been our thing from the very early stages in the late 80s of Pro Wrestling Torch. We've always been built on a variety of voices, writing editorials and commentary from different perspectives, and we continue to be true to that brand with our website. When a lot of other places are moving away because Google News isn't going to promote and flash an editorial, and they're not going to feed that to you as much as the headline on cutbacks and stuff like that. So we try to stand out and be a little different. And so hopefully it's part of your daily viewing. Create a tab or a bookmark. By the way, I also host the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Shows and the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcasts, the weekly flagship on our Blue Logo show, and sometimes interviews and pay-per-view previews and other flashbacks too. We've got a really fun interview with Ken Resnick, former AWA and WWF announcer and interviewer, coming up. I think it should be up by the time you guys are watching this on the Blue feed, Wade Keller Post Show feed. And he talks about interacting with Hulk Hogan and the Road Warriors on interviews and many others. And then the marathon interview sessions, localized interviews during the WWF syndicated days when there'd be, me and Gene or Ken Resnick later would stand there and interview wrestlers, and they would do, 12 or 20 interviews over and over again for each market, trying to individualize them while the room is full of other wrestlers waiting their turn. It's just all kinds of great stuff. Ken was really a fun interview. So that's going up. So anyway, subscribe if you haven't yet, because if you're only watching us on YouTube, you're missing content on both the red and blue feed otherwise. The way to do that is just search Wade Keller on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or whatever podcast app you use on your iPhone or Android device. You can also stream the shows directly from our website, PWTorch.com. Search Wade Keller. While you're at it, search PWTorch, then subscribe to the free PWTorch Daily Cast, different shows each day of the week, specializing in covering AEW, WWE, NXT, the indie scene. We've got our 90s Past Cast, where it's a look back at Patrick and Alex look back at a 30 years ago Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter and just go thoroughly through it and what I wrote and pick on me sometimes or go, wow, Wade had great foresight on that one, but what about this guy? He said was going to be a future star, or whatever. It's really fun show. I mean, you got to subscribe. There's going to be 1 or 2 or 5 shows on that lineup that become destination listening. So, and it's free. So go for it. One other note, when I say free, that's to differentiate from our VIP podcast. And we have a whole array of VIP shows, everything with Rich and Wade, The Fix with Todd and Wade, the Wade Keller Hotlines, and then some shows I'm not part of. And we've got our vault of shows almost every day going back 18 years. We did announce a sale this week coming out of the Rumble. It's the first time we've had a sale since our YouTube era here doing post shows. And it's a $10 coupon, and you can use it for a 1 month, 3-month, or annual subscription. That brings the 1 month sub down to just $2.99, I think. So it's a good entry point to unlock 35, almost 40 years of archives, hundreds of retro radio shows, including my old KFAN radio show in the early 90s. It unlocks our Royal Rumble post-event roundtables dating back to 2004. So that's 22 Royal Rumble post-show roundtables that have been VIP exclusive all along that you can instantly not only listen to on demand on the VIP website, it's on the sidebar of every article page on our VIP ad-free website. We also have an RSS feed for it, so you can subscribe on your phone individually to that and listen to all the post shows on your phone. Back issues of the newsletter, ad-free experience on our website, our weekly newsletter with exclusive content, including Greg Parks' excellent weekly feature columns, Sean Radican, Alan Cunahan, and Rich Fan with exclusive columns, my cover story, pay-per-view roundtable reviews, lots of great stuff. Check it out. It's a really cheap entry point. It's a way to support us and see what it's all about. We do on the YouTube page have a QR code. And if you scan that on your phone, it'll bring you right to the sign-up page, and then you enter coupon code 2025 save 10. 2025 save 10. And that will get you $10 off a 1 month, 3-month, or annual subscription, or just go to pwtorch.com/govip, especially to our audio listeners, pwtorch.com/govip. And again, enter coupon code 2025 save 10. First sale we've run publicly in a long time. First one ever we've announced on YouTube and our YouTube era here that's less than a year old, doing these post shows. And we'd love for you to try our service. And of course, drop me a line, an email, if you have any questions about where to find stuff or you just have feedback. kellerwade@gmail.com is my email. You're always welcome to email me. And I can't promise a response, but I'm pretty good a lot of the time getting back to people. I'm always reading emails and then marking them to respond to later. And if it's urgent, I certainly will get to you right away the vast majority of the time. Okay, so with that said, Chris, I mentioned columns. Tell people about your contributions to our website, pwtorch.com.
Sure, Chris Adams, and I write the hits and misses column for Smackdown. So sometimes I'll go through bit by bit from the show, but a lot of what I'll do is I'll break down pieces that I think have been really meaningful and talk about why I think they've been successful for the show and why I think they've been successful in perhaps halting the flow of the show. So hits and misses, and that usually comes out on Saturday afternoons.
Excellent. It's I love getting your perspective on things. And I mentioned earlier, the genesis of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter, because I was just a teenager when I started the newsletter. I brought in other voices. I wanted a diverse mix of opinions because I basically just wanted to learn from my writers. And so many different, it's fun to go in these early issues from the late 80s and look at the pre-computer desktop publishing software program. I mean, I was like using a typewriter when I started, and then I was like cutting and pasting. Cool. I was cutting and pasting strips of paper out on bigger sheets of paper and shrinking them down because you couldn't change font size on dot matrix printers. I mean, the technology has just been a blast. Yeah. You can watch through the different stages of development of publishing the newsletter. If you like our brand and what I do, there's a huge history to dive into. And it was always about different voices, and everybody, and we see it on the show too. I mean, the spirit of the show, there's a lot of post shows and podcasts where it's one person or the same two people. And you might love them, and that's great. But I love mixing it up with different people. I always learn from different opinions, and I always look forward to reading the few trackers, the hits and misses, the contributions from our team. And Chris, it's been great having you on board for that too.
Thanks. Now, when you were doing it back in the day, were you using a mimeograph machine?
I always used a commercial, like copier place, but
or something.
Yeah. I think it was InstaPrints was the first place I went to. If anyone knows that, I don't know how regional that was. I think they're gone now, but they were a big chain in this area.
This vision of you like furiously moving the pieces, like who's got you like trying to figure out how to make this thing work. Like, thanks for putting the work in so that people like me can have a place to do stuff like this. So we're standing on your shoulders.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
Yeah,
appreciate it. Okay. All right. Standard Deviation says, that's what I love about the Torch. It's media done right. I appreciate that. Thanks, Standard Deviation. Okay. So let's talked about a lot there. So basically just if you're in the chat room, keep chatting. You're always welcome. And we always love the live chat interaction. We had it in the early days of Blog Talk Radio, and then there were tech issues with it, or we kind of got away from it. But it's really great to have that live feedback on what we're doing. So you can be part of the show in the chat. If you're watching us live on YouTube, search PWTorch on YouTube if you want to subscribe to our channel and then hit the alert bell so you'll get notified when we go live too. But we're always on live after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown, and after PLEs and other major events, Center's main event. Sometimes we're going to be doing live shows after that. Don't think we're going to be live after Grand Slam Saturday night. I can't rule it out, but I know Brandon Leclerc won't be hosting, but there's a chance we'll do something tomorrow night. That's just tomorrow night. I'm talking about that like it's way in the future. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and it'll be tape delayed and stuff, so we probably won't. And it's not as big of an event as we kind of imagined when it was going to be the big stadium show. So, but nevertheless, you can also participate by emailing us, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. And if you are a VIP member or Patreon supporter, you can be a video caller or audio only caller if you want to turn off your camera. Just check out my TV reports at pwtorchvip.com or on our Patreon page. Search PWTorch VIP on Patreon if you want to support us there. Okay, a lot of business to cover there. We got it taken care of. Now back to the aforementioned chat comments on our opening discussion. Derek Hubbard said, another good night for Jey. The crowd was into his entrance, promo, and comeback in the main event. The crowd is helping him rise to the occasion. So, Chris, I want to pause there before I read more comments. What do you think about we haven't talked. What do you think about Jey's Rumble win? And what do you think about there's been a debate. I think most people are pro Jey winning, but certainly there have been people going, I don't know if that's the right move. I think this is, pick your cliche, Jey punching above his whatever. I don't know. I can't. Yeah. Above his pay grade or whatever. Jey was very popular, but so was Fandango for a little bit, or so was LA Knight, but it doesn't mean make them world champion or have them headline WrestleMania. Jey had already lost to Gunther clean. Just felt like it was lip service. They're paying him as a courtesy to have him say, I'm going to win the Rumble. But I saw Monday's reception and tonight's also as more than just, we like Jey. It felt like Jey just won the Rumble, and we don't think that's overdoing it. We're elated for him. This is cool, and we're glad his story is continuing because they're cheering him, I would say, more than usual, although who's to say? I guess you could do a blind test of different entrances and decide. But they sure haven't softened on him because he now has taken the Rumble win away from CM Punk and John Cena. Pick your guy who you were favored, and he's going to have a WrestleMania main event, barring a big angle that knocks him out. So people don't resent him for that, and I think that's a win for him because there was a chance it was going to happen. So I'm along for the ride and enjoying it. I haven't officially said this was the best choice to make, but part of that is I want to see what they do with the other top names first. Because that does matter. But Chris, what do you think?
All right, so this was not in my equation, right? Like, yep. I did not see it coming. I wouldn't have even thought other people were seeing it coming, right? Not that Yeet Mania was over, but it just didn't seem like that was the story they were going to tell. And then when it happened, I felt excited, right? Like I was surprised, which is what you want from good storytelling. You don't want it to be formulaic in particular, when we're talking about storytelling centered around combat sports, you have to have those moments where the unsuspecting person wins, right?
Yep.
The
It
only
pays
reason
dividends.
yeah,
It pays dividends for years to
underdog
come. Yep.
stories. That's right.
Yep.
Like David and Goliath stories have to happen for it to still feel significant and engrossing. And so I understand it from that perspective. I understand it from a merchandising perspective too. And if we want to talk about wrestling and what it's always been about is the ability to draw money, that's Jey Uso, and he's going to draw them even more money now. So you've got that. I know people want to be critical of the skills, the in-ring skills he brings, and
Yeah.
I think that's a legitimate criticism. However, I think he does his limited move set well. It's not as if he's sloppy with the few moves he has, right? So I think they have an opportunity to tell a story with him and Gunther that would require he and Gunther to do some really good rehearsing beforehand, right? They could tell a story where he proves everybody wrong by beating the best wrestler in the business, as Gunther's continuing to be we're told he is.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see this through line, and I can say, you know what? For everybody who loves Jey Uso, that's awesome. It's not the story I think I would have told.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's the story they tell, man, I think I'm actually along for the ride. Yeah.
Yep. Mark Biscotti says, are you going to pay to see Jey? Are record numbers going to pay to see Jey? And no, saying there are many main eventers or many main events isn't an answer. In a way, it is an answer, Mark. I mean, I don't mean to push back just instantly on your line, but WWE is an ensemble company. WrestleMania is an ensemble event. There are 2 nights. There's 2 final matches of the night. There are, unfortunately or fortunately, many matches that will be called main events. I mean, they're a little loose with that term now. And they can afford, for the benefits that come from an unexpected winner who I would say crosses the bar to be a credible, world champion challenger at a WrestleMania event. I think it's sort of like Solo. Like, Solo's a 4 to a 6.5. Like in the ring, Jey is like a 5 to a 6.5, in terms of big matches, but he's not they're not bad, but WWE has plenty of good wrestling, and they're going to meticulously book that match, lay it out. It's going to tell a story, whatever match he's in, and it's going to be good enough. You do not want WrestleMania, both nights, to feature only matches of people at Jey's excitement / skill / work rate level and lower. You need to have people who are, quote, better, bigger move sets, more dynamic, more believable, whatever. I mean, of course. But it hasn't been a hang-up for me because I just don't think we're at such a different stage than we're like 40 years ago, where like the Ivory House show was like, oh my God, somebody had a 3-star match at a house show. It was like, whoa, let's Wrestler of the Year award to this person. I mean, there's just so much good wrestling out there. You have to cross a certain threshold of quality, but now granted, I mean, let's see the lineup, because it could turn out they don't have enough good matches, and the fact is you'd like to have that in your world title matches. Because if it's Cena Cody, that's not going to be that's going to be worse than Jey Gunther in ring wise. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, Cena just can't go like he used to, and Cody's Cody. There's a Cody style match. Right. It's good. I like his formula match. I think there's a lot to learn from it, but it's not like a barn burner without a better. Yeah, you need a better opponent than Cody, to create more movement and more dynamic offense and all that. But Cody's great at reining people in, telling a great story, making it efficient, making everything count. So my point is they better have an eye on that, or Jey will take even more heat. But yeah, I mean, so far, I'd say so far good enough.
They could tell a story where they do something with him training openly as part of his storytelling to get to WrestleMania. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, what if he went to the dungeon, right, and they did some vignettes with Jey Uso doing something like that? Could be cool enough for me to say I get what they're doing. But to Mark's thing, would I pay $2,000 to see Jey Uso main event WrestleMania? I don't think I pay for Jey Uso ever. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
But I do think people would pay to see it, because the vibe has been consistent, and it's been consistently good.
Yeah. Well, along the lines of training in the dungeon, Brock Benningfield in the chat says Jey learns a submission, and Azan says Jey with TJ would be something. And so 27 Newsman, by the way, says if there were two 12-year-old boys hosting this podcast, they would be telling you how awesome Jey is. He appeals to the younger generation as a top star. I see my kids' reactions. And that's the thing. I haven't said this very often lately, but I used to say it a lot. It's not all about you. I care about everybody's opinion. Everybody's opinion counts in the sense that here's what I want. You have a right to want something. You have a right to like somebody and not like somebody. I mean, of course. But just because you like somebody and it's just a personal taste thing doesn't mean it's the right thing to do for everybody.
Right.
And that's why, if you're 12 and you have your favorite wrestler, sure. I mean, more power to you. I mean, if you're 40 or 50, you got your favorite wrestler, more power to you. But, the analysis part of it does it appeal to a wide enough audience to meet the WrestleMania threshold? And, that's the challenge. Azan White says, Jey Uso is hot right now, and you keep the train running until the brakes fall off. Jey is like Kofi and Bryan Danielson. Sadler version 3 says, I don't like the LA Knight and Zack Ryder comparisons for Jey. Jey was a main event character in arguably the greatest storyline in WWE history for 5+ years. He put in the work. He is not a flash. Azan adds, Jey has been putting in the work since the COVID era. He was the MVP of the Thunderdome era. This is not an overnight sensation. As Elred Ryan says, people were saying Jey had to be the person to dethrone Roman a few years ago. And so, this is not like, wait, where did this come from? There's no way that this was foreseeable or anything like that. Absolutely, people have been eyeing Jey for a push like this. I just don't think they thought it would happen after he lost to Gunther in Saturday night's main event. And there was CM Punk and John Cena as favorites to win the Rumble. Chris.
Right. Yeah. Especially after losing the way he lost at Saturday night's main event, right? To then have him suddenly be presented as the guy to take him down on the biggest stage of all doesn't seem consistent, right? And so I think in that sense, the storytelling feels bumpy, maybe slapped together, not quite smooth yet, right? But I get it, right? You ride the wave, you keep going with it, and if it's growing, then you keep growing, right?
And I mean, you think about how many times Vince McMahon did not do this, and promoters in general, taking a chance on somebody. Now, Jey is not some young upstart guy. Like there was in circa '89, there was Rick Steiner was suddenly getting over. Like maybe I might be off by a year or two, but he was like. Maybe it's 91, whatever. But he was like getting over as like a singles guy. People were like, oh, go with him. Like he's more he's getting better reactions than Sting and all of that. And they had a chance and they didn't do it. And maybe it was wise, maybe it wasn't. But he was a young upstart at that point, Rick Steiner. Speaking of, Braun Breaker and that family. And there's all kinds of examples of wrestlers who got over before they were supposed to. Or more than was convenient for the booker and the politics and the pay scale and what they trusted, their maturity. Heck, Hulk Hogan got over more in the AWA than Vergani wanted. He didn't want. He wanted Hogan to be a challenger who lost to Bockwinkel and moved on, and the next challenger comes up, and it got overwhelming, and then the whole story there. So, and obviously Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan. The most prominent example, Kofi was a feel-good story. I think there's some similarities with Bryan and Kofi, Chris. I mean, a longtime fan favorite. Heck, there's a similarity. I mentioned this earlier on a different podcast about Bret Hart and Lex Luger. And I remember talking to Jerry Jarrett when he was, part of WWE's creative process, and he talked about how he was pushing Vince to go with Bret because he was more of a grassroots kind of Jey Uso guy, a tag wrestler who fans followed his whole career, and he was popular. And Lex Luger was more of the typical guy Vince wanted to push, a Hulk Hogan replacement, and Vince wanted to make Lex work, but the crowd reactions and just everything just said Bret was the better choice, and Vince was resistant to it. Paul Levesque knows that history now, so. This isn't, it's picking Jey, not over a similar wrestler like Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan or Batista and Rey Mysterio and all that stuff. This is different than that in the sense that it's Cena, who's a legend on a final run, not someone they're trying to push to the top. And it's over CM Punk, who's a different category of legacy star who's telling a separate story. Nevertheless, there's some similarities there. And I think Levesque knows history and goes, I don't want to be one of those people who doesn't take advantage of something special. And let's just make money on it. It might be delaying some other stories he wants to tell, but let's ride Jey while we can.
Yeah, I think that's what makes pro wrestling really fascinating as a money-making enterprise and as an artistic medium, right? When you think about the Fast and the Furious movies, started out with street racing and detectives, and now it ends with them going to space. We might say that they've sold out in their storytelling, right? Because of how crazy it's gone, and how bombastic it's gone, and how it's evolved. But this storytelling is a sort of give and take between the consumer and the artist, right? Where it is a sort of symbiotic relationship, unlike scripted storytelling in a movie that is given to us. There's crowd response. There's direct, immediate metrics from who sells what in which markets, right? So
live focus group, as Vince always called his audience.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So our sell, our merchandise purchasing, our chants, all those things become the way in which we ourselves take ownership of the creative process. And I think we could say that this is what we're seeing with Jey Uso. Hopefully, they strike when the iron's hot and it sustains and it's something awesome. I will say, though, it's going to be strange if they don't have him win at WrestleMania. Because if they have him lose, then it's got to be game over, right? Then he's truly
that would take the wind out of the sails of the audience too, Chris. I mean, again, maybe in 2 months Jey doesn't have this momentum that we have now. Maybe it kind of peters out a little bit, but and they can judge that as the time comes. I mean, my hunches are open to either scenario, and I suspect they're leaning strongly towards one. But I bet they're open to. I bet Levesque is open to an audible. Again, that's different than what he's strongly leaning towards or planning right now, because you can go either way with it. I mean, it doesn't. Unless Gunther has asked for 6 months off for optional but needed surgery, or some personal. I mean, or Jey, same thing. Then people can be shocked by that. But yeah, couple other things in the chat here. Sadler version 3 says Jey also appeals to an urban, specifically black audience. He's had multiple entrances with popular rappers. The hand wave taunt chant is a popular hip hop move, and I mean, we're if they're in a business of reaching a wide array of demographics, and that's part of the calculation. Are we going to bring in younger people and people from who we have frankly done a poor job marketing to, or appealing to, or catering to, or connecting with? Pick your term. All those have different connotations. They have not always done a great job. Vince McMahon, I mean, with men and women, had a certain thing he looked for and was out of touch on other things. So that is a factor here that I don't think we should say Jay's getting a push because he connects with the urban audience. I think, well, we can say that, but it's part of a mosaic of reasons. It is a reason, and it's a good one. It's a plus, not a minus. But he also is just really popular with everybody. You know what I mean? That, I mean, I don't want to make him out to be like some niche guy who's getting a push just because of a demographic strategy. Right.
And if I could compare his pops to LA Knight and the crowd response, I think people pop, at least this is my take, because it kind of feels like the LA Knight momentum is over, or is on the descendancy. Is we pop because that's fun, but the crowd loves Jey Uso because he's fun and has this depth to him that allows us to tolerate him standing there crying, and we're into it, right?
Yep.
We would not do the same with LA Knight. We would be wondering, where's our party guy, right? And so I think there's a difference there. in that kind of crowd momentum piece.
I think that's a great point. Let's. I want to bring Derek Hubbard in here in a chat comment. For anyone questioning Jay's in-ring work, the final stretches of Jey versus Braun and Jey versus Gunther were the most emotionally drawn in I've been in the last 6 months. That's more important than work rate. That's what I say when I say there's a lot to learn from Cody. And I've been critical of Jeff Jarrett to the point where if you put a mixtape together of things I've said about Jeff Jarrett in the last month, he would never talk to me again. But if you put a different mixtape together of things I said about Jeff, I've said a lot of compliments, and one of them is I think there's a lot that he's done in I almost said TNA. I mean, it's Jeff Jarrett, and AEW resembles them in certain ways these days. But in AEW in the last year, there's things he's done that have just been a clinic for a lot of younger guys who are all about getting a pop from the crowd with high spots, density of high spots, spamming kickouts, getting certain crowd chants, doing things to hope to go viral. And Jeff's just out there telling stories, and he's the king of. I mean, no pun intended, king of the mountain, but he's a king of just one thing after another being booked in his matches. Like his match structure, going back to the TNA days when he was booking finishes, were so elaborate. You can judge it positively or negatively, but he knows that it's about telling a story, not being the fourth guy on the TV show or pay-per-view to do a flip dive. And so there are people to learn from that can tell stories in a different way. And Derek has said it. That Jey Braun match, I use that as an example of why you don't give up on. In fact, you keep it your primary formula, which is good guy, bad guy, home team, away team, protagonist, antagonist, babyface heel, whatever you want to do. That crowd was and I wouldn't have been. I would not be surprised if that match wasn't what sparked the thought of what we're seeing now being the plan, because the crowd was so into Jey, so into the near falls, and then Jey Gunther too. They were emotionally drawn. I think Jey Braun was actually stood out to me more than Jey Gunther, but that was there too. Yeah, crowds want to see Jey win. They don't want to see him do a move. They want to dance for his entrance, but it goes beyond dancing for the entrance. It is a connection to the person, as you were talking about, Chris, and it's like. It's a work. Like almost everybody watching knows that, but fans just want to see him win. They are into that story.
So Stephen King has this quote. He said, "Fiction is the truth inside the lie," and I think that's what we see with Jey Uso, right? Yep. That it's fiction, but it's true, and that truth allows us to see ourselves in him, right? Like everybody can see that story of I don't want to be associated with my family. I'm doing my own thing. I'm trying to change. I don't want to break bad anymore, right? I want to be somebody different. And that's the story he's been telling, which is I think why it connects on this primal level, right? And it's got to be paid off. But they can't stretch believability by having him go on some 6-month, year-long reign if he wins the belt at WrestleMania, right?
Yes,
and that's okay too. Yeah.
So, if Jey wins the title, we got 2 months basically to explore this. Right. Like, who will his opponents be? What kind of story can they tell? What does it mean for Gunther? We can definitely get into that. Let's go back to the chat and a couple other live comments worth. A couple other chat room comments, I should say, coming in here. Mayface says, unpopular opinion, no problem with Jey winning, but 10 minutes of yeeting is a little too much for me. I mean, the music rebooting, both on Raw and on SmackDown, I totally understand people going, okay, come on. Like, we get it. I didn't need it tonight. Yep. I don't blame them for doing it. It shows you can replicate it. It wasn't a one-off. But I totally get the idea that this is... let's not do this again, because his ring entrances are long, and I'm sure there's people who see Jey starting to come to the ring and they go, I'm gonna go let the dog out, I'm gonna go plug in the EV if I forgot to do that, whatever they're doing, they got their chores to do, whatever. So but other people are watching that going, this is my favorite part of the show. And it doesn't happen all that often. It's it feels organic. It's earned, as people talk about in the COVID era. It's earned. Darrell Freeman says Todd Martin is being shown even on another night that Jey is more than an entrance. Look at tonight when they had Cody set up the hot tag and the fans got hot and super loud when he got in. So it's not just a ring entrance. I mean, this goes to, fans want to see Jey win. Fans want to see Jey get a hot tag. That's an old spot. You milk it. You do it. It's been around forever. The hot tag. But when you get sometimes the pop isn't there. You can't take it for granted. But people really want to see Jey get the hot tag, and they're excited to see him. There's something special going on with him, a connection with the crowd that's earned, and it's long term. And it is different than Kofi. It's different than Brett. There's similarities, but it does feel like there's something different.
Yep. I'm here for it in a way that I wasn't before the Rumble, even, right? So the way that story was told got me in. And I'm kind of surprised that I'm here. So something's working. Yeah.
Yep. Brock Benningfield said tonight should be the last night for extra long entrances for Jey. Sadler version 3 says, I do think the entrance length is overboard, but the crowd is chanting for encores, so hard for me to complain. Yeah, when they're chanting for encores. Sadler wanted to chime in and go, the urban comment wasn't to subtract from Jey. It was just meaning to add that it wasn't just the little kids he's catering to. Very, very true. And then Brock Benningfield says, I would criticize the old regime when they wouldn't budge on their ideas. If plans were altered for Jey because of the voices of the fans, then I tip my hat to creative. And that's what I'm going for. Mark Pischetti wants to know, am I missing something? Was there a grassroots movement for Jey? I remember Daniel Bryan's, I remember Kofi's. I don't remember an upsell for Jey. I see as someone who got himself over. I think people going back to COVID and the bloodline and when Jey was breaking away said there's something here. And people want to see him be the one to beat Roman. I mean, there was a grassroots movement for Jey to beat Roman. So it's been there. Darrell adds, to me, there might be more stories to tell with Jey at this point in time. You have Drew, Jacob, Solo, Roman, even Cody, plus Jimmy, Sammy, and Braun. Wow. When you put it that way, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, seriously, Jey is a vulnerable champion who fans love, riding this magic carpet ride of unexpected world title success coming out of the Rumble and WrestleMania. And you have Drew try to take him out. You have Jacob Fatu try to take him out. You have Solo, maybe Roman, maybe Cody, maybe a heel Sammy, babyface Sammy, Braun Breaker being the guy who eventually beats him. Maybe Jimmy and Jey. I don't know if you want to go back there, but seriously, they can look at that and go, you know what? That's a lot more than we got for Gunther.
Yeah, that is. And, I do think it's worth pointing out that this title reign for Gunther has not been, at least from my perspective, given the kind of attention that it should have, nor that his Intercontinental title reign got, right? So let's say he loses to Jey. I would love to see him come back with that ferocious violence that he promises. A lot of that list that was just named is a SmackDown list, right? So that would necessitate Jey going after Cody's belt. But hey, those stories would be awesome. And even though Jey has made his turn, just because you've made a turn does not mean that you have lost the guilt from your previous treachery. And Drew McIntyre would probably still have some things to say to Jey Uso, right? Especially if he hit gold. So that could be cool.
Yep. All right. Standard deviation just goes, a heel Sammy against Jey at SummerSlam could be huge. Wrestling fiction is truth within the lie, but when done well, it can also ring true outside the lie. That's where wrestling storytelling can offer a unique type of depth compared to other stories. Chris.
Yeah, that's great. Going back to heel Sammy versus Jey, that could be cool. But that transcendence of riding the line between truth, lie, fiction, reality, so it makes this beautiful. Yeah, that's cool.
All right, shifting gears deep into the first hour here. Charlotte, very heelish. You're like, all right, let's bring out a baby face and we can sell tickets, so to speak. And then Tiffany comes out, and it's Tiffy time. This cliche, trite comments. Not trying to be a baby face, but the fans are siding with her over Charlotte. Not shockingly, because WWE kind of hedged on her being a heel because crowds were behind her. I could definitely live without the phrase, and I have to say this, without the phrase living rent free in someone's head. Like Samoa Joe was saying that last year, and like that that expired like 5 years ago. It's like so
Right.
overplayed. But of course, Charlotte rolls it out after it had been not said. I don't think anybody in the world has said that phrase in 2025 so far. And Charlotte reset the living rent free in your head meter. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That was so overstated. So that's a parenthetical. It's just because that was a thing of mine where it's like, stop saying it, everybody, because everybody's saying it. And then Charlotte rolls it out and resets the living rent free in someone's head meter. We didn't get the Mitchell meter was not reset tonight. That is nice. And whatever
the what
else.
meter? The Mitchell meter?
The Mitchell meter.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Chris, on a serious note, what did you think of Charlotte's performance tonight? Clearly now as a heel. I think Todd Martin's right. I think the plan Monday was for Charlotte to pretend to be a babyface, lull the fans into cheering her, and then go, I don't really care about you. Are you kidding me? Which totally explains why it doesn't explain. They're running vignettes showing her on a yacht. And, and then she goes, oh, this is the toughest year of my life. We're going to have sympathy for you. The videos you just showed the last 2 weeks are you living the high life on a yacht. How is that? Oh, we feel so sorry for you. They totally botched it if the idea was to try to get the fans on her side. They just misread that. But it wouldn't shock me if that was the plan. It's hard to believe they thought Charlotte could turn the fans on her side and get fan support. That also feels tone deaf and like, really? So anyway, I'll throw it to you. Your thoughts on Charlotte's return and her week, including tonight, obviously, most specifically.
So I think there would be a difference between the booing that she got instantly, right? Immediately on Monday, she got the boos. Mm-hmm. That feels different to me than lulling, as you said, lulling somebody in and then having the heel turn, which is, you're right, probably what was going to happen. But those boos were more than just boos for a heel, right? That feeling of being forced, of her showing up. We all knew it was going to happen once the vignettes came, once she declared that she was returning. It felt inevitable, which stole the thunder from the Rumble. Not to be alliterative, but I actually really enjoyed her tonight, though, because immediately she leaned into it. Her clothes were different. Her persona was different. I'm not the biggest Charlotte Flair fan. When you have something called like what they talk about, she has a Charlotte match where she'll only take a bump on a PLE, a flat back bump only on PLEs. I don't know. That's not my kind of wrestler. So I would have loved to see someone else win. This just isn't the story that I'm interested in. And I hope Tiffany beats the crap out of her at WrestleMania if she's the one, right?
I think you can think everything you're thinking and still calculate. I get why they're pushing her for Tiffany to beat her if the idea is to give Tiffany that transitional torch passing moment.
Yes.
I'm not promising that's what WWE has in mind for Charlotte. I mean, they might think, no, we got Triple H, Paul Levesque calling her the greatest female wrestler of all time, or whatever, the phrase was pretty close to that on the Rumble post Q&A. But even if you don't want her to win and you wish she went away or you wish she was mid-card, you at least have to understand WWE's thinking, which is, well, let's utilize her gravitas, her Flair name, her history at WrestleMania, all her title wins, the way she carries herself, and let's let Tiffany have a moment with her in the ring. I mean, that's part of creating new stars, is the new stars getting wins over the established long-term stars. So I just say that as like, if you're against Charlotte at all being anywhere, you're giving money up. There is equity in her being in a top spot and having a pass the torch moment. I am not promising that's WWE's plan, but you at least should consider that because some people really don't like Charlotte. She played into that. You're obsessed with my looks, my name, whatever. Right. So anyway, Chris.
Here's what I hope doesn't happen, though. I really hope they don't position Tiffany as the next Charlotte, as Charlotte 2.0, as somebody who is simply just sort of the new version of the old thing, because I don't think that would bode well for Tiffany's future. And I don't think that's who she is right now. There are obvious similarities, hair color. They can do awesome moonsaults, right? They both can go in the ring. But there's something different there, right? in attitude, in spunk, in language, in delivery, and as long as they keep them separate in presentation, I can see where they're going with it. But you're right. To give up Charlotte would be to give up money. So I'm not saying that at all. I totally get it, and I understand her role in women's wrestling and in WWE in particular.
And we also have Rhea Ripley against Charlotte as a possibility, and it's a rerun. We've seen it, but that can be it can feel like, hey, we need to have this match with Rhea, as big as a star as she is. Charlotte gone for 14 months. It feels fresh, and it can come across as an epic match, but you don't want it to become like Cena Orton, where it's like, okay, we're tired of it. You don't want Rhea in that kind of feud, but it's been long enough, and Charlotte's been away long enough. I think you can get away with doing that too if they choose to do that. I think you have two good options there. What's your thought on what they actually end up doing?
Well, if they did Rhea Charlotte, I'd be totally down for that, because that match ruled at WrestleMania 39, right? So if they delivered something on the level of that match, sure, I think that could be awesome. And I think that match, Rhea Charlotte at their best, would be a better match, or at least what I'd be more interested in than Charlotte Tiffany right now. But that torch passing moment on the grandest stage could be cool. So I think we'll get a good match either way. I just am not personally invested in either story enough to say, hey, this is the one I really, really want.
And I'm curious how you get 2 months out of Tiffany and Charlotte exchanging words on the microphone and all of that. I mean, how is that just delaying what you want Tiffany to eventually be? If you want her to be a heel, if you want her to be a face, maybe you go on a journey with her and Charlotte being so heelish that happens. We'll see. So some chat room comments to throw in here. Sadler version 3 says, at this point in her career, Charlotte should be getting legacy pops, but the booking of her parachuting in for title shots constantly turns fans against her. She has 2007, 2010 Cena vibes. I think that's a good way to put it. Her parachuting in, in getting title shots. And there's just something, there's something about her. I mean, she isn't doing the cadence of talking like this on her promos anymore. She's talking more like a human. And that's good, but you can tell there's this chip on her shoulder. Like, I got money, I got star power, I've got the history of all these matches. I am royalty. People buy that her gimmick is who she thinks she is. And it might be, it might not, but it doesn't matter if that's what fans see. Like, because to me, there's like, people see Jey Uso as a character on TV, and they think it's an authentic version. It's a version of who he authentically is. Amped up, altered slightly, whatever, but they don't think it's contradictory. And that is always happening. There's the real person, there's who the fans think the real person is, and then there's who the fans see on TV and know is their character. You really are on blast when the on-air character feels connected to who fans believe the person really is. Braun Breaker might have a personality different than people think, but I wouldn't put him out there on podcasts to show it off.
Right.
He could be this soft-spoken guy who in his every free moment he has is saving kittens and finding foster homes for them. Knitting. He might like knitting and he might be into poetry and go to but you don't tell that story, not even on podcasts, not even keep that. So you want and that's the new work. The new work is get people to say, okay, here's this character, but it's connected to who they really are, even if that who they really are isn't who they really are, but there's that next layer. And so with Charlotte, she has that going for her as a heel. People do believe she's full of herself, not insecure and a nice person. If you met her, they think she would not sign an autograph if you caught her, wherever, off camera. So it's interesting. And they have two options. Neither are perfect, because Rhea Charlotte feels like a rerun to some people or stale, and they'd rather see Rhea against somebody fresher. And then with Tiffany, the issue is, what's the chemistry there? Passing of the torch moment. Now I'm not the new Charlotte. The torch is passed to me. I'm just Tiffany, and I'm made. Whatever. We'll see. That's the fun of watching. They've thought this through. They've talked it through. They know what the alternative is for the other person. And it could be fun. So couple other comments related to our discussion here. Let me find it. Oh, just they were noting in the chat that Charlotte got cheered on NXT. Brock Benningfield said that. But Sadler V3 says, yeah, NXT cheers literally anyone who comes back. And Ryan Solorio says NXT crowds love their NXT alumni.
Yeah.
So, that's at play there.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you live around there and you go to those shows regularly and you're seeing the same people, and then a massive star shows. Yeah, I'm gonna cheer for her. I'd cheer for Charlotte. Well, I'd probably cheer for her anywhere. I'd get caught up in the moment. But.
Yeah. Okay. Chris, you choose the next topic. What's on your mind that we haven't covered? Cover the big two. The Rumble winners.
Can I go back to something real quick before we move on to another topic?
For sure.
Okay. Something just clicked for me, right? The new kayfabe, right, is someone who embodies their character so much we trick ourselves into believing it's real, because we're all in on it now. And so the real successful performers are the ones who can convince us to say, look, we know it's a work, but maybe not.
Yep.
And that's what Jey Uso has. Right?
Yep.
And if that's what Charlotte has, no, that's not the kind of person I want to support, right? The yacht riding person.
Yeah.
All right, put that pin aside. Can we talk about the Street Profits? Because that promo was amazing.
Yeah. It's
loved
so fun to see them do something different. I mean, it's like New Day, they do the same act for so long, and there's something more there, and you want them to sink their teeth into it. What'd you like about it, Chris?
I loved the color palette, all black and gold, right? I loved the ferocity that Montez Ford exuded.
There was a sinisterness.
Yeah, there really was.
Yeah.
And again, it wasn't cartoony, right?
Yep.
It wasn't,
it almost was.
It was. You
could see him almost go there, and then he pulled back. And I like
that. And that's what was so cool. It took you there, and then he pulled back. And there was a moment where it looked like he was about to go over the top, and then it was a silent opening of his mouth. You saw the grill, and I thought, that's somebody that I don't want to mess with. I don't want the smoke, right?
Yeah.
I loved that, and I thought we saw some of that coming with the Pride stuff with Bobby Lashley, but this feels different than even what they were trying to do with the Pride. So I loved it. That was one of the most exciting moments of the night for me.
Now, sometimes I have closed captioning on just so I can keep up on, if I'm trying to transcribe what announcers are saying, and if it's a key quote or a wrestler, and it's on a little delay. So if I'm then I don't hit rewind. I can just look and, that's what they said in my reports. And I had that on, and closed captioning thought that Montez Ford said, "God have mercy on your souls."
He did.
He said, he said for real, "God have mercy on your souls because we want the smoke." I like closed captionings better, in part because I don't want them to lean on the "we got the smoke" thing. I would like to see them move away from that. Same way I want the Guns in AEW to stop doing, beat up road dogs for just like we got 2 words for you with Billy. Just get your own thing. If you're going to be new, you can drop it in later, but don't just do a variation of it now. So that would be my vote. Not a huge deal, but that's my vote. But closed captioning thought he said this, and I was like, this is great. And then oh wait, he didn't say this. God have mercy on your souls, because we won't.
That would have been way better.
I thought that when I thought he said that landed with me. I'm like, God have mercy on your souls, because we won't. That's way better than an old trite catchphrase that you repeat endlessly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
because that feels like they're coming with something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something with a new kind of venom, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
Edge, sinisterness. Yeah, I know. Well, hey,
didn't ruin it. They still stuck the landing, but that would have been the icing on the cake. Absolutely.
Because the close. I don't know how the closed captioning works, but they heard not want the smoke, but won't, and then it got confused with the smoke. Going, what was that? But in part of it is I just have an aversion to building catchphrases into your promos when you're trying to reframe yourself in a different way. I just think they leaned on that so much. I think there's some negative baggage to it. And it feels like, okay, you're going through the motions. You just start punctuating differently your catchphrase. No, drop it. Go all new. And again, I thought Colton and Austin Gunn on Dynamite, I wish they would have had new material and not done, the 2 words for you stuff. It's just, if you're gonna redo it, redo it. Love the camera angle on that too. Like it was just from the side looking up. Yeah, I hope that is the beginning of something really cool with them. That's a whole new chapter of their careers.
Yeah, he also said something about how these groups had broken up and gotten back together, but they had never done that, right? And they've
teased it. They thought of doing it, and they never did.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if this was WWE saying Montez Ford is never getting a singles run, or, this is the story they're telling right now with the Street Profits, right? Because I think we're due for a Ford singles run, but just now is not the time. But okay, but at least they're giving us something good, something worth it.
Yep.
So I really love that.
Mayface says they had me at no solo cups.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep, I love that. Ryan Solario says Angelo Dawkins cut a good promo though. Brock Benningfield says yes, going in the right direction with the Profits. Yeah. And he said we've always been together and we're going to stay together. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't quite sure what to make of that because you can stay together and have singles runs, by the way. So, Angelo can support Montez going after singles title and vice versa. They can be together but not be a tag team, and that has happened. But the idea that, we have never broken up and we're dangerous together is good. Doing this promo, I mean, are we sure they're heels? Or are they just Street Profit baby faces with an edge, a venom, as you put it?
I don't think they're heels necessarily, and I don't think that what they did, with breaking up the match, right, the 2 out of 3 falls match and getting in the middle of it, necessarily firmly makes them heels. It makes them people who have been wronged, and sometimes people who have been wronged act out in their quest for justice, which is a common theme in stories that WWE is telling right now. Right? Yep. With those towing the line sort of stories. So I think that's what we're going to get, which will be cool.
And they were calling out DIY. DIY are heels. Like, I mean, there's no doubt about that. But WWE, I wouldn't say blurring the lines, but they're just going, it's okay to have people who are well-liked and not well-liked against each other. Or, 2 people who are well-liked and 2 people who are not well-liked interacting with each other and especially in the tag division, they just have all these people mixing and matching. And even Nia Jax comes out and it's like, well, I didn't like Charlotte and I wasn't sure I liked Tiffany, but I definitely don't like Nia Jax. And then it's like, well, now who am I going to choose? I don't think you should overdo it on that. I think the boom period is because people were very anti-Bloodline, thought they were cool, but they were anti them because they loved Sammy. They wanted him to break away. They loved Jey. They loved Cody. That's what the boom period is about, loving and cheering for enthusiastically and rooting for certain wrestlers on a journey and rooting against heels and having it well defined. I'm not against exceptions now and then, but I think there's a little too much of that in Live X booking right now, and I think you should be careful if it's like, well, we got to get everybody on TV, so let's have everybody on screen at once arguing with each other, even heels and faces and faces. And I don't know. I'm
sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, but interfering in the tag match, as you said, it's not a heel face thing. It just should be decried by the company. That the establishment should say, and somebody should say, as they should have with Tiffany, wait a second. The title matches should be sacred. We advertise it. You earn it. If you got a beef with somebody, wait till after the bell. But if you interfere in a title match, it's like NBA players. You can yell at a ref, and you might get a technical. If you clap at a ref, you're going to get a technical. If you touch a ref, you're going to be suspended. It's just clear. You know what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. Well, so make it clear. To me, make it clear in the universe of WWE. If you interfere in a title match in progress, you're suspended. It's zero tolerance policy for that. Yeah. Because I think you want to protect championships in the sacredness of a title match within WWE's world. It shouldn't be treated flippantly as a device for someone to express anger. I feel strongly about that. I think you can book around that as a structural non-negotiable. And so that's the thing with me. I think you should protect title matches, not have the announcers go, oh, gee, the Profits really had a message for WWE management or these teams. No, there was a title match going on a pay-per-view. It meant the world to the Machine Guns. That should be a big deal. If you don't make it a big deal, how do you expect us to care about the next title match when the title match is just a vehicle to forward a character in transition? I'm against that. Go ahead, Chris.
Man, I'm totally with you. I mean, there are a couple things along that same line that have happened lately. The biggest one for me is the fact that KO was allowed to carry the Winged Eagle belt publicly, and not just publicly, but then would hand it to the referee. When Nick Aldis at one point used the belt as a negotiating thing to say, "Bring it back, or you're going to get fined," right? But then they let him just set it aside. Why didn't the ref just take it and say, "Got it, Nick, here you go," right? Or in these matches where you say the interference happens, right? You have Michael Cole sitting there just saying, "Oh my God, here's shake it for two." Well, if it's a recurring problem, wouldn't a ref in any real sport or a sideline worker yell to the referee, "Look at this"? Like, they wouldn't just keep calling the obvious infraction.
Yeah.
In a UFC fight, if another challenger entered the octagon, right? Oh my God. So they have the opportunity to tighten up that realism, but still use it, right? We're not saying take away that plot device. We're saying make that plot device feel less like a MacGuffin and more like an actual substantive contribution to the storytelling.
Well put. My dog was trying to get my attention while you were talking.
My cat was trying to get my attention too.
He wanted to come in and now he just left again. I don't know what he wants. All right. It's just the fun of live podcasting. Yeah. Barry Wood says the Profits could seal up their new attitude with a violent match with some blood, but there ain't no over baby faces to serve up. Ryan Armstrong says, I'd love to see Los Garza versus Pretty Deadly versus Machine Guns versus Street Profits versus DIY in a tag team turmoil match at WrestleMania 41. I wouldn't rule out, by the way, they don't do a 2-on-2 Mania match. I mean, to me, that feels more like we have an hour and a half to fill on SmackDown or something like that. But I mean, they are putting a lot of teams out there and trying to show them all at once. In part because they don't, it's kind of like the parade of women for the Rumble. They don't want to give individual segments to all the women who are in the match. So they sort of have one segment where it's like, okay, we'll just, you can, when there's a match set up backstage and it's like 5 people arguing with each other, it's because they don't, some of the wrestlers are not big enough stars to get their own segment. Yeah. And you don't, with the tag division, it's like just get the tag teams over and protect them enough where you don't have to do those kind of shortcut type things. Standard Deviation, by the way, says, I'd say that makes them heels, interfering in the match. An honorable person wouldn't have chosen to interfere in a title match on pay-per-view. Being a heel doesn't mean there's an absence of depth. So, I mean, this is the thing. I want a reality in my pro wrestling structure that if you interfere in a title match, it makes you a heel. That is not WWE's reality right now. That's not how the fans perceive it because WWE has convinced people that throwing people over the top rope and being number 30 and standing around while other people get thrown over, the last one standing, makes you WrestleMania worthy. We all buy in. It's ludicrous. It makes no sense. Right. There's no skill set that matches winning a world title to winning the Rumble, but we buy in on it. WWE can convince a fan base of a lot of things by consistently applying not propaganda, but like just storytelling, like saying this is how it works. The story can be interfere in a title match. It's despicable. You're suspended. It's dishonorable. These are sacred. You're suspended. They don't do that, so the fan base doesn't see it as that. That's why they don't react with outrage. But the result of that lack of telling the story about sacred title matches, the fact that there's a lack of outrage by the fans is not justification for going, the fans don't care, so don't bother. The fans don't care because WWE hasn't bothered. Again, it's more of a sidebar generic issue, but you can make fans care if you commit to it. The Profits right now seem heelish, but maybe they're just going to be edgy, shades of gray tweeners who take on all comers. But I just don't think that works. I think you get ambivalent crowd responses. If you want them faces, have them be edgy, but stand for something. If you want them to be heels, have them be edgy and cheat and be jerks towards teams that fans ultimately like better.
Well, the actions that people take aren't immediately placing them in one camp, heel or babyface, in the way that maybe they used to when it was so cut and dry. I mean, I'd push back against Standard Deviation to say, okay, was Cody standing over KO's nearly dead corpse, flexing both his belts? That was heelish, right? Or at the the most charitable, that was boorish behavior. Maybe not totally.
Well put, yeah.
And so I'm a Cody dude, And that didn't feel good. I thought, but they're doing something with the storytelling, but it didn't make him a heel. And so, one time doing something, yeah. But I agree with you, Wade. I think the WWE internal logic of that is acceptable behavior is just bad storytelling. That part needs to change in the way they tell those stories.
Yeah. And I think there's more. When I am an advocate for structure, it's not because I want structure to exist unimpeded. It's that when you violate structure, I want it to matter. I want it to count for something. And so I believe having that structure means it'll mean more when someone breaks the rules, breaks from the accepted code of conduct. But you have to establish that. So then when it happens, it means something. It's why, whatever, weapons being used in matches and it not mattering, or I don't know. I don't want to go through the whole list, but like even breaking up pins and tag matches. It used to be you got 2 saves. And Corey Graves brought that up once and then didn't bring it up again. It was like a thing he did for a month. Bill Watts is like you get 1 or 2 saves per match, and then after that it's a DQ. Like just create some structure, and it adds this whole other element of then you're getting away with something if you break from it. So I won't even get into my thoughts on security guards, but I think there should be capital punishment for beating up these poor guys just trying to restore order. Go ahead.
Yeah, who are there making minimum wage, right? Well, the pile driver is a good storytelling example, right? The pile driver in AEW to WWE is they mean different things, right? And one's not better or worse, but the fact that it had been banned for so long, KO's been using it, allows them to tell stories of spinal compression, right? Okay, we know that that's not how that works, but because they've told that story that it's so dangerous for years, it works. In AEW, that's not the story they tell. So Mark Davis can do a jumping pile driver on Will Ospreay, and he kicks at it too. Okay, in that world, that's the way it's told there, right? So just make your stories internally the best and most consistent possible. That's what I want, even if they play by different rules in different places.
And like when I talk about the Royal Rumble being a ridiculous standard to earn a WrestleMania title match, I wouldn't change a thing.
No.
And I wouldn't draw attention to it. But it is, if you think about it, ludicrous. It's illustrative of the fact that WWE can, if they consistently tell a story and everyone with a straight face abides by it, you'll buy in. It's an exciting match. There's drama. It worked. It clicked. But it isn't logical that would be the standard. It's like having a slam dunk contest to determine who the starting 5 are going to be in the NBA finals. Like one has nothing to do with the other. The best team are not the slam dunk champions. But if you tell the story and you do it believably, it works. So I'm not against it, but it's illustrated the fact that you can make fans believe almost anything, given how ridiculous, like Roman Reigns when he won. It's like, I eliminated 29 other people. No, you didn't. You came in the middle of the match, and then you laid at ringside for 20 minutes, and you eliminated 3 people, and mostly it was you ducking when a guy charged at you. You did not eliminate 29 other people. If you're going to be a babyface, you cannot gaslight us like that. We know better. Like Charlotte tonight, when they put the infographic up, she only spent, 15 minutes in the Rumble? And then the 4 people that she eliminated were most of them mid-carders, not to discount them at all, right? But then she said that, I was in the ring with 29, I can't remember what she called the other women, nothing competitors or something like that. It's like, no, you were in there for 15 minutes. You got lucky. That's an interesting story too. I got lucky. But at WrestleMania, you'll see what I'm made of. Okay, that's a cool Rumble story. And WWE picks and chooses what they draw attention to, what they hang a lantern on. Do you draw attention and shine a light on things that make no sense? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You don't talk about the Rumble. You don't want, a color commentator going, why are we determining who gets a world title shot based on the Rumble? Like it's a wrestling lottery combined with a skill set that has nothing to do with winning a title match. So you don't draw attention to that because it draws money. But there are things you can draw attention to. Charlotte's a heel, bragging about winning the Rumble. You could point that stuff out. You also run the risk of damaging the brand of the Rumble by drawing too much attention to that. It's a game of chance and not actual merit.
Yeah.
So there's a reason they say, I think they should say outlast 29 other people, not eliminated. I mean, there's a way to not gaslight us. KO's promo. Let's talk about that in the car. I love his front, cutting promos in his car again. Talking about Sami Zayn again. Obviously, they continue to put a lot of time into the KO Sami dynamic, and KO's voice is cracking as he talks about Sami letting him down. I mean, KO is just great. And then the quote: "He's a horrible friend and a disgusting human being." I mean, like, it's just laying it on so thick. It's like how the announcers talk about like Dominic being such a awful person. So yeah, your thoughts on KO's performance tonight, Chris?
Well, so when that moment came up, I can't remember what my son was doing, like getting chips or something. So he was halfway paying attention, but he heard "disgusting human being," and he looked up and he was like, "Did he just call his best friend disgusting?" That moment was awesome, right? KO in the car, perfect. But this promo had a layer of practiced pain that shows why WWE probably pulled out the big bucks for that contract that KO announced today, right? Which I'm glad he did. I'm glad that we're getting 5 more years of KO and WWE. I still contend that he is right in his motivation. He's wrong in his execution. I totally would feel the exact same way to see your friend not help you, really. Yeah, he tended to him, but he didn't help him. And then to help the guy who manipulated him. That is sick and would be psychologically tormenting to your best friend. I'm for it. That crack. Yeah, it's awesome.
I don't know where we're going. I mean, like, is Sami turning heel? Are Sami and KO going to be a tag team after they fight it out? Do they even fight? I mean, this could go different directions because Sami hugging Jey going, I'm cool that you won. It's great, but Sami is feeling like the system is working against him, and people don't see him as a WrestleMania main eventer. He doesn't have the world title. He's not in the league of these other people. CM Punk being dismissive in a comment about him. You're not in my league. He's got all kinds of reasons to be aggrieved and to go, you know what? Screw it. I'm done being, begging for acceptance and approval. KO's sounding more and more logical to me. I like what he's saying. I'm going to side with him. So yeah, KO resigning for 5 years, that news being out, KO tweeted, if you wanted 5 more years of me, you got me, whatever that was. That's good. I mean, now they might tell a different story with WrestleMania than they would have if that hadn't happened. But KO is just doing, I think, phenomenal work, but I also don't know that it's better than other phenomenal work he's done. He's just part of a red hot product right now, and he's getting consistent time to do it. And you don't have Vince McMahon messing it up. So I think there's a lot of just sort of, kind of surrounding circumstances that make this stand out more to me. But I love everything he's doing right now.
I do too. And when I first got back into it, a couple of years ago, I liked him when he was on the screen. But he wasn't somebody that I instantly fell in love with. But over time, I've seen just how amazing his body of work can be, right? Yep. Who he is, who he embodies, how he performs. It's sort of like he's who I would be if I was a professional wrestler. Like, I'm not that fit dude, right? I'm that guy who can take a beating, right? So it allows us to identify with him, regular people, right? That's what's cool about KO. And he just doesn't take any crap, and that's what you want too, right?
And he's just his oratory skills are just top shelf. I mean, there's a combination of body language, facial expressions, what he says, how he says it, the emotional connection. Like, gaslighting is such an overused term now, but he will gaslight you with a passion and a believability where you're like buying in. It's like Joe Tessitore after KO talks has to say that's a bunch of BS. That's not connected to the truth. but actually it's a little more connected to the truth than Tessitore frames it as when he's done talking. So that's fun. Okay, let's hit a couple other. Well, by the way, Ryan Solero says it's crazy Punk saying Sammy isn't in his league during the match. Then after the match, trying to shake his hand. LOL. And Standard Deviation says, I guess they need to keep it ambiguous because once they show their hand regarding Sammy and KO, it might make it too easy to figure out what happens with Jey and others. Everything is mapped out. And Brock Benningfield just goes, yeah, KO's working on a different level. Okay, in no particular order, Carmelo Hayes gets a win. Carmelo wins over Akira Tozawa. And
what's that win worth? I mean, it's a win on TV. A better match than I thought.
Oh yeah, Tozawa's good. He's just a goof comedy figure, but yeah, I mean, no, it's not like there's a reason he's still around, and and that's one of them is But I mean, it took him 8 minutes, I mean, it's going 8 minutes and winning over Tozawa. I don't know if that's like a big boost for people who are like, oh, give Carmelo more of a push, but I think Carmelo's entertaining in this role. Not everybody's going to, not everybody who's as talented as Carmelo is going to get the spot that they might have earned in a thinner roster. But Carmelo's playing this role well. And he's, cashing paychecks and getting TV time. I understand people going, oh, if they didn't job him out and protected him more and he wasn't this cocky loser, they could make more money with him. And I'm like, okay, but then who do you displace who is getting that type of a push?
Sure.
Because Carmelo is interesting because he's in a different role than a guy who's trading wins fairly with other people who are top of the second tier people. This is a more interesting story. It's because it stands out. It's different. And I know there's people like, oh yeah, I'd push him. I'd push him more. Well, do you want to tell the same story with him you're telling with a bunch of other people?
Yeah.
Is that better for him? Does he stand out more if he's not only a heel braggart, but he's also winning? Or is it more interesting at this stage to tell this? I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's people getting cut today. There's people not getting TV time. I just say that not that, hey, maybe they couldn't make more money with Carmelo, give him a push instead of maybe you've got a couple wrestlers you would name. Sheamus, for instance. Like, take him off TV, give Carmelo his spots. Okay. I mean, I'll listen to that. But tonight was an example of Carmelo. I don't throw air balls and John Morant, and he's getting heat, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, I find him entertaining, and I don't know if he'll ever be a main event guy with this journey he's been on, but I don't know that he would have been anyway.
Yeah, there's something there. I think he is really good on the microphone. Do you think this is the story they were going to tell when they had him be the first round draft pick, the number one?
Yeah, I was like, why is he the first round draft pick? And everything that's happened since then totally explains it. And Wade Barrett has said it on commentary. Sometimes I can't do my Wade Barrett accent on demand.
Sometimes.
But Barrett said there are first round draft picks who come in and they're cocky and they think they're better than they are and they get humbled. And that's what's happening. There's there's a Chicago Blackhawks rookie, and he loses. He's good. He's going to be really good for that, but he loses every faceoff. Like, he's terrible at faceoffs because he's not against kids in the junior league, or like he's actually having faceoff against men, and he loses an unbelievable percentage of his faceoffs. And that's kind of, Carmelo's got skill, but it's a sports story. Big prospect, high hopes. You think you're better than you are. And you got shown up every time because you're underestimating the level you're at now. And so I think they wanted to tell that story from the beginning. I do not think he's done anything wrong. This is a push that is from somebody who's a fan of his. They're just not as big of a fan of his as other people are. But this is not a burial. We think this guy can tell this story in this character in a way that fans will relate to, that reflects sports.
Yeah. I mean, and he, as you said, he's had TV time, and he was getting TV time when SmackDown was still just 2 hours. So, with that kind of limited real estate, they see value in some sort of story. I would like, he's probably got it. Well, we know he's got his long-term plan. I'll be excited to see him get some bigger wins and to see if he can hold his own.
Yeah, I think there's a long arc for him. We'll see what happens. But I mean, Carmelo wins. It's Tozawa, but he was I think entertaining in the setup. And I don't know. I don't think he's done anything where management would be like, we can't push this guy. because he's really let us down. Yeah. So anyway, but again, I don't know if this match would have. This match probably wouldn't have been on SmackDown if it were 2 hours. They might have not have brought Tozawa over. I mean, as much as he gets TV time either way. Ryan Solorio says, "Do you think they're waiting for Trick in order to push Carmelo?" So that's the thing. They could have a story in mind for Trick Williams showing up, and Trick is the transformational influence for him in some way that brings Carmelo to a different level. And Brock Benningfield says, "I hope Melo doesn't turn out like Theory, where he's just defined down permanently in this type of role." All right, let's bring Dan into the conversation. Dan, thanks for calling. Thanks for holding. What do you want to bring up about SmackDown tonight?
Yeah, I started the pod pretty late, so I'm not sure if topics were already discussed or not. But have you talked about Alexa Bliss's match?
Thank you. No, perfect timing to bring her up because we need to.
I'm kind of curious to know what's going to happen with her, being that she's still wearing her Wyatt gimmick from back in 3 years ago, whatever it was.
Tessitore called it the Abigail DDT. It's she hasn't abandoned that. What do you think, Chris? What do you think of her character and her performance? And it's been over 2 years. What is it? Over 2 years since her last singles match? I think Tessitore pointed out.
Yeah, just over 2 years. I remember that singles match. Because I remember she made Bianca Belair bleed. That's what I have in my mind. I think face down into the ring steps.
Yeah,
I think she's cool. She's got a great look. I have no connection with her because she left right when I got back into it. I was surprised that for someone who got such a big pop at the Rumble and tonight, the match was oddly quiet.
Yeah.
To me, they had the flickers, the screen flickers, so I think they're weaving her in with the Wyatt Six. It's just a matter of time when they're going to have that happen. As to what her role is going to be, is she going to be the leader, right? Where's Uncle Howdy, right? So. Some cool stories on the horizon, I think.
Yeah, I think she could be the spark that they have been sidelining the Wyatt Six, waiting for, for her to come in. I mean, Ryan Solorio says, I think she's going to be part of the Wyatt Six. Dan, back to you.
Yeah, I think so too, because otherwise she would have been on Raw. But having her on SmackDown, it seems likely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else?
What about the McIntyre, the 3-way match? LA Knight trying to get his little digs in. Do you guys talk about that?
No, we haven't. What stood out to you about Knight's promo, the digs?
So he said, I got to get all this in before, and then, he said whatever he said. And that was part of McIntyre's issue at the Rumble, was he had to get his moves in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
funny though.
Yeah, no, I know, and I'm suspicious of this as a thing that then makes it to TV. I mean,
we're being doubly worked.
Yeah, just like when Punk came back and Drew threw a fit. It's that wasn't supposed to be on camera. Me yelling at the production, whatever. It's yeah, it was. I mean, it's meant to seem more real because they're not putting it in canon of TV. And I loved the line of Priest going, good thing Drew won because otherwise he'd be on the internet complaining by now. They're just playing up on this thing. So yeah, Priest had a good line in there. LA Knight's good when he's they figured out he's best when he's walking to the when he's in the aisle walking on his way to the ring. It's just he's going to close with this catchphrase. I think him just saying, "Oh, I got to get my stuff in." Yeah, it's a reference to the reports of Drew grumbling about that. But that's what the Rumble is, and they almost bumped into each other. Right. But also people close promos by going to their catchphrase. It's it could have existed independent of it. Goodfella 1422 says Drew did look kind of stiff at some points and that takedown looked aggressive.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I thought it did too, but again, I think they're also smart enough to play with us, right? Hey, let's be stiff. in this
Drew's
match.
a professional.
They
He's
know
not
we're
going
going
to
to
take liberties.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
is Drew McIntyre the kind of guy to ever go into business for himself physically in a match?
Mm-hmm. If we get LA Knight against Drew at WrestleMania, this is the way they wanted to tell the story. It's not my, my favorite way to tell the story, because I think you can get tripped up trying to work double, create a shoot work, work shoot, whatever. I mean, it's just, I don't think it works out. I just tell stories in canon and just, Drew's so good at it. LA Knight's popular, Drew's a heel, but whatever. I mean, maybe they'll make it work. So far, it's fine. Dan.
I think you probably already talked about it, but it was basically Jey picking whoever he wants to have a match with at WrestleMania. But I'll just
we
go
should
back
talk
and
about
watch.
Jey. Oh wait, we did. Yeah. No, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I know. I figured as much.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. You guys have a good night.
All right, great. Thanks, Dan.
Hey, you too, brother.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That triple threat match was really fun, though. In particular, I thought the finish was awesome.
Yeah. Talk about it.
The reverse Claymore, right?
Yeah.
That spot.
Blindsiding LA.
They played with the possibilities of a triple threat in ways that didn't feel like two separate parallel matches happening, which I think happens when you have three kind of bigger stars, right? This one felt like a match with three different people because they wove them in together. And the German superplex, my God, that's the stuff I live for. That kind of stuff, that was awesome. And I didn't expect it from these three people,
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
And Knight pulled it off. He didn't slip. He
didn't slip. I was thinking like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's like they say in basketball, if you keep missing, but you're a good shooter, you keep shooting because you're not going to miss forever. LA Knight missed, however many weeks in a row and kept doing it. Now he's like, 7 out of 9 weeks he hasn't botched a spot, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, I could never do it. So,
well, you're not getting paid to be on national television.
That's right. I'm not a millionaire for that. No.
The standard is not whether you and I can do it. The standard is they're paid professionals, and there's a long line of people who can do it. And if you're on national TV, you better be able to do it at a high percentage.
I could get it onto the first rope, though.
Maybe.
Actually, I can't guarantee
that's
that.
what I was going to say. Even that might be harder than it looks. Bouncing around in that ring and the canvas wearing wrestling boots. Gargano and Ciampa and Pretty Deadly. Gargano and Ciampa are a blast right now. I love the dynamic. Yeah. Gargano is so good in the way in NXT. Playing off of Ciampa it's like we talk about Sammy and KO, and they're next level. But Ciampa and Gargano are in that realm of two people who've just been around each other so much. They know each other. They play off each other really well. And they're so different. Gargano is he's like the BSer, and Ciampa's the unfiltered guy, the hothead, but in a way it's really fun. And I mean, it seems like Pretty Deadly are going babyface, although who knows in this tag division. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, the DIY has that 80s good cop, bad cop feel, Tango and Cash kind of feel, right?
Yeah.
They've got this energy that is mischievous and maleficent at the same time, right? That I think is really cool, and it's dynamic, and it creates really good opportunities in terms of not just physical work, but promo work, character work. Pretty Deadly, I'm super glad to see them getting more screen time. I love their in-ring style. I do not love their fashion sense, and that's why I like them so much, because I love to see these dudes in their little sleeves, throwing some, heavy, stiff forearms, right? Like the contrast of style and substance there is really cool. I think that feud will be fun. Is it going to be amazing? I don't know, but I think it will be fun.
We have a super chat from Bid Moon, who says Sammy is a horrible friend. Thank you, Bid Moon. You did that a while ago. Sorry for not getting to it sooner. Super chat's always welcome, especially late in the show when maybe there's any time of the show is great. We'll take your fill the tip jar, but if it's late in the show and you're like, you might get lost in the cluster of all the chats if there's something we haven't covered you really want us to bring up. Piper Niven, Bianca Belair, haven't talked about that. By the way, talking about chemistry, this is why I bring this. Piper Niven and Chelsea Green are great together. Niven with that sad boo-boo face after her loss, and Chelsea talking about her needing more security. All these people are coming in, more protection, Secret Service. I mean, they are a blast. And Niven, like Niven's kind of like Carmelo in that I think some people just want her to be a centerpiece, star of the women's division because she's good and she's different and has pedigree and all that. But this is really fun. I mean, even if she is, she's losing to Bianca Belair. She is she's not quite Tama Tonga where she's going to lose if she's in the match. But, Chelsea's getting more of a push and is more protected. But Piper's I think she's having a blast. And it seems like
I read an interview with her, and she said this was her favorite time of her career. Now, most people may say that, but she was naming very specific reasons that what being paired with Chelsea Green has made her feel about her own self. And so you see that coming out, right? I'm with you. The Secret Hervis, the first week when it came out, I thought, no, this gimmick isn't for me anymore. And then when she came out in the Wonder Woman attire, I thought, okay, I'm a comic book person, right? Obviously. So that got me. But they've stuck with it. And as with everything Chelsea Green, she just makes it work. It's magic. And the Secret Hervis business, I think, is really cool. Watch it. The match between her and Bianca, I think they have pretty good ring chemistry. This isn't the first time, but we've seen them fairly recently. The visual of the KOD is really cool. I would like to see Piper get a few big wins every now and then, but I still thought it was a really good match.
Line of the night, by the way. Speaking of Piper Niven. Why does everybody hate you? I popped for that. I'm glad Ryan Solorio brought that up in the chat.
Yes.
Her delivery, like all these people coming at her, and it's just like, why does everybody hate you? And at some point, Piper Niven, not to do the Otis, Chad Gable, Miz Mizdow stuff all the time, but I mean, there comes a point where Niven could be a breakout babyface turning on Chelsea. It could go the other way around too. Chelsea ends up kind of going babyface because she's just entertaining, and Niven gets more sinister. But if they break up, maybe they're Street Profits. They never break up. But if they break up, that could put Niven on blast to be more serious, even though she's showing a real comedic touch.
I mean, is this going to be Diesel, Shawn Michaels?
Right?
That sort of feel.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, she's talented and she's having fun out there. Did you get any hints on Bianca Belair and Naomi and where that's going? I mean, people are going, which one of them is going to turn, which one of them attacked Jade Cargill, because it's hard to imagine other candidate. The other theory, and Todd Martin obviously feels strong about this. He's mentioned this fix that it's both of them, that they're in on it, and they're turning heel, and that Jade's going to have to take on both of them. Any thoughts on that? And did you see anything tonight?
I haven't thought about both of them having been responsible for turning heel. Yeah, that could be cool. I again, like with a lot of these, I'd be down for it. I feel like, though, the momentum, the steam in that story has completely vanished.
Yep.
I feel like they're going to have to artificially make us care about it again.
Yeah, it's a long investigation, and they're not talking about it, all the time. And I mean, there's times when they're kind of annoying or a little too, I don't know, flippant, mixed with moments of sincerity of wanting to know what's going on, and it's kind of weird. And like, is it because they're trying to be annoying to lay the foundation for going heel? Has that happened often enough, or is that just the way WWE book segments that are drawn out, where they're not quite sure because they don't know when the crescendo is going to happen, so they just wedge in little ways, and it's clunky sometimes when they acknowledge it?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. There's things that they could have done, I think, within the storytelling to keep it in our minds of we're still trying to figure out who it was that got Jade. Just a couple of those things, Nicholas every now and then saying, hey, we're checking in. So again, I don't know if this was a legit injury, and so they just didn't have plans for this. There hasn't been much backstage or behind the scenes information that I've been able to glean about it.
Yeah. All right, let's bring CJ LaChapelle into the show. CJ, thanks.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks for holding. What's in your mind about SmackDown?
You're welcome. Actually, if you don't mind, I have two generic questions.
Sure. We'll decide if it's okay. I mean, we're a post-show on SmackDown. We may or may not give it much time.
But the first one, as you know, I'm really new to your VIP thing.
Yeah.
You
got my attention.
So,
Thank you.
And Tuesday was the first time me watching the NXT review. I think the two guys did a phenomenal job.
Oh, Kelly and Nate are great.
Yeah. Do they ever take questions or calls, or how do they do their thing normally?
They can and have, and yeah, that's sort of up to them how often they want to go there.
Okay.
But they've got email, so that's certainly a way to participate. But yeah, you can drop me an email, and I can forward you an email. Go ahead.
And then, out of the current batch, not all time, just currently, who's your favorite ring announcer? I think Justin Roberts is criminally underrated.
That is getting into you are fined and suspended, CJ. That is so generic. Too generic for the SmackDown post show.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you said,
I have one more question after you say this.
Okay, go ahead.
Because Monday being a work night might be hard for me to stay up and ask a question. If I miss, can I ask you a question about Raw on Friday or no?
You typically no, but I will make an exception this time. But otherwise, just email us if you're watching Raw, and then you can listen back to the show.
Because that's Bailey's show now.
Yes. You can. I just say CJ email if anything about Raw, and then you can listen back when you wake up. But what are you asking about Bailey? Go ahead.
No, that's just. Do you think she gets the win on Monday? I assume so.
And remind me of her opponent. It
will be I have it here. Give me one.
I'm sure you do.
Valkyrie, for the Elimination Chamber qualifying match.
That's a tough call.
I think she gets the win because Zara is too new to go to have that spot.
Yeah, if she doesn't, they're telling a different kind of story with Bailey. If not, Chris? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, if she doesn't win, if Bailey loses, I don't really know where they're going with it. It would be strange to have Lyra Valkyria lose, specifically since she's the Intercontinental Champion, right? I think it's always weird to have champs take pins.
Yeah.
So I expect her to go into the chamber. Would be my guess.
Yeah. All right, cool. CJ, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Absolutely. Hope we answered your questions sufficiently. Chris, anything else you want to add before we log off tonight?
Man, I think it was a great show, especially after a couple weeks of not filler, but slow paced, a little more sluggish. This felt more consistently fun throughout. So if this is a good hint of what's to come on the road to WrestleMania, I think we're in for something really awesome.
Ms. Andrade, just any quick thoughts on Backstage? I think that's one thing we didn't cover.
Yeah. I still think they could have an awesome TV match together. Mm-hmm. And so if they tell the story right, I think they could do something really fun. The Miz can go, right? When he wants to and when they give him the opportunity to do it. And I think he would have something to prove against Andrade. Now, was that the moment where we saw Shinsuke in the back between the two?
I was wondering. I didn't go back and look, so I don't know. Sometimes it is. I think it is a happenstance that someone's in the background, but I didn't think a lot of it, but it might be.
Can I respond to something Sadler just said? I read.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, I think you're totally right. I'd like to change my opinion. After I said that I think Lyra's going to win, I'm like, you know what? They won't put her in the chamber. I think he's right. I think Bailey wins and goes to the chamber.
Yep. Sadler says, I think Lyra needs to build her IC title, so she isn't needed in the chamber match. Ryan Solario says, I think she gets in because she has a qualifier in 2 weeks. Dan says mid-card champions in qualifiers. And Ryan says, I think she wins because Roxanne has a qualifier in 2 weeks. So I have to map it out. I haven't studied the qualifiers and even the heel face matchup dynamic might matter in this in terms of the
that's true.
Everybody who makes it too. So very good. All right. So I'll just close with just that final pitch for VIP membership. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Use coupon code 2025 sale 10. Take $10 off a 1 month, 3 month, or 1 year sub. I could spend an hour telling you about all the cool things that come with the VIP membership.
Yeah.
Our VIP vault is awesome. Almost every day there's a show from 18 years ago. Pay-per-view roundtable reviews, just classic in-depth single topic long form discussions with Bruce Mitchell on the Bruce Mitchell audio show. The Real Deal with Pat McNeil, which is just a blast. The top stories of the week, delving into the news, names who were on the indie scene back then, who you forgot about, or who are now main eventing. Special guests popping in on the Real Deal, big names now, who back then were just, doing early version of podcasts. Yeah. So that's on the VIP feed. We split the VIP feed now. You can get all the shows on one feed, but you can split it into retro shows and nostalgia, and then all current shows. That was something people requested because, sometimes you're in the mood to keep up on current stuff. Other times you want to settle in and listen to retro stuff that's a little more evergreen. It's customizable with the full VIP membership. You can have a bunch of different podcast feeds for different shows and groups of shows. So many cool perks. If you haven't been a VIP member, I really encourage you to try it. I mean, yes, we're running a business. We want customers, but I genuinely think if you've listened this long and you like our approach to things, it's just, I think it's a really good way to spend your time consuming wrestling information and knowledge compared to what's out there for free or elsewhere. I believe in our product. I believe in our body of work going on, it's over 35 years of content. And you're missing out on a lot by not being a VIP member. And this sale is a chance to get in cheap, or just take a discount and dive in for a year. We'd love that even more. I think we're, for what people charge for premium content and services out there, I think we're a bargain, especially if you like pro wrestling. I would say if you don't like pro wrestling, it's probably not a bargain. But if you like our brand of coverage and you think we're a business worth supporting, it's what drives our ability to do everything we do. This, YouTube is not a get rich quick scheme, especially when you're early in the process and we're early in the game on this. So we rely on VIP membership to be able to put the time in that we do. And so anyway, I'm not begging, but I'm just saying I want to do a hard pitch because I don't think you'll regret it if you sign up. There's a lot of good stuff there, and I think you'll feel smarter, and it's entertaining, and we take ourselves seriously, and other times we don't. So it's a good group of people.
Yeah, I mean, I'll plug you, right?
Sure, thanks. Yep.
I think what you're offering is something really, really phenomenal for the community, right? And when you started this, did you set out to create the most valuable VIP membership in all of pro wrestling? Because you did.
Oh, thank you.
But I'll also say it's, and I might be biased because we're doing this, but you don't pay me to do this, so you're not paying me to say this. I think it's awesome. And so if you're listening right now, check out the VIP section. It's totally worth it.
I appreciate that, Chris.
Yeah.
Check out Chris is writing this weekend. You'll have your hits and misses. Every Saturday usually. Sometimes things come up and you don't drop everything to get it in on time. That's totally okay. That life happens. But yeah, it's a destination reading on weekends. PWTorch.com is our website. I'll throw the graphic up as we close out here. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. You can pause the screen if you're watching us on TV or laptop. Point your phone at the QR code. That'll take you right to the sign-up form. 2025 save 10 is the coupon code. Takes $10 off any of our subscriptions, 1 month, 3 month, annual. This is the full VIP membership. There's no limitations on this. You get everything unlocked, 35 plus years of content plus the new podcasts. And when you sign up, if you're on an iPhone, which most of you are, based on statistics, you'll get an email and you just click the link. It automatically launches Apple Podcasts, the native app, and signs you up. You don't have to. You don't need to do any password entry or advanced settings. It's as smooth and frictionless as a VIP membership anywhere you're going to find. We have a great webmaster who really created a slick setup for that. So if you're not very tech savvy, you don't have to do anything other than sign up, and then when you get the email on your iPhone, click that link, and boom, you're logged in. Now you can customize your feeds after that if you want, but you'll get the catch-all feed when that email comes in. It's real simple and quick. So check it out. All right. Thanks again, Chris. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Thanks to our callers. And everybody, we will talk to you all next time. Thanks.